Hello, this is Tracey from Constantine Quilts in Australia, and today I'm going to give you just a quick rundown on how to use the perfect cable templates to create all sorts of cables on your quilts. Now, this template, it's not a quick and fast treatment to do any sorts of cables on your quilts, but it is exceptionally effective when done well. What this template does is allow you to design so many different designs to go on to fit in the borders and the sashings that you have on your quilt. Now, the template comes in pieces like this, and there is a center piece, and they are all split at one end so that you can get it over your foot of your long arm machine and be able to guide your machine on either the inside curve or on the outside curve. Okay, so the first thing you actually need to do is decide, have your quilt in front of you for a start, and decide which of these templates or what cable is going to fit in your border. Now, the one I've actually drawn on here is for a 6-inch finished border, and if you take off the outer bit, you can see that if you try to use all of them, they're simply not going to fit. So I'm just going to keep on removing. And even that one would fill up the border, probably just a bit too much. So I'm just going to go back to that size there. Now, the next thing you need to decide on is how many cables are you physically going to stitch. Because there are so many different designs, this is some decisions you need to make first up. I've decided I actually would like to stitch 1, 2, 3, 4 lines in this particular cable. So now that I've decided on the size that I'm going to use, I'll just choose these ones here. Next thing I'm going to do is just draw up on a piece of paper another border, another piece 6 inches wide, mark the center point along there. And what I need you to do is put down your template and trace around the largest part, and I'm just going over it dark so you can see. I would never use texture normally or a permanent marker, plus the smallest cable, just like that. Then I'm going to draw 2 more, and I'm going to match the largest cable with the smallest one. And already when you first got your perfect cable templates, I did strongly suggest that you marked with a scored a line on the halfway point. These have been used and used and used, so it's a bit hard to see, but I'm not sure if you can see on here. I'll just draw it on here, but there's already a notch in the template so you can line it all up. You just need to place a ruler down over all of them whilst they're nested and score a line at the halfway point all the way across. Alrighty, so now we're just going to draw the next cable where the largest cable is joining up with the smallest cable, and keeping the center line straight, we're going to draw these. At the same time, what you also need to do is just where you scored the halfway point, I want to create a mark so that we can measure what our repeat is, just like that. Once we've done that, I want you to measure what that repeat is. On this particular one, it's 5 7/8 of an inch. So that is the repeat that we need. Now when you get to your quilt top, whether it's on your machine to mark as you go, or whether you mark it before you load it, and honestly, it is easier to mark cables prior to loading your quilt. So, in this example, I've marked a 6-inch wide border. I've created some corners. You must mark with a water-soluble or pen or a chalk that will be removed your corner diagonals on both sides, your exact centre of your quilt, as well as the centre line along the middle of the border. Once you've done that, grab a tape measure, and I want you to measure how long that is from point to point in the centre of your border, and in this example it's 30 inches. Once you've done that, you're going to work out how many repeats are going to fit between those 2 points. And in this case it worked out to 5.1 something or other. So we need, you can either choose to drop it back to only 4 repeats, or in this case I kept it at 5 repeats, and I knew that it's going to squish up into the corner, and we will create a corner to make it turn. Now, knowing the number of repeats it can fit, ideally you actually like a little bit left over, so it would finish a bit short and you could create a unique corner to turn it. But if it's an odd number of repeats, you just need to round it up or down to the closest full number. Then, if it's an odd number, you're going to start your cable so that the centre of your large cable is on the centre line of your border. If it was an even number, then you needed to mark and measure from this point here, which is exactly half. So it would be 2 inches and 15/16 would be 2 15/16 is that point from there to there. And then that there, so you would measure out that far to here, and that's where it would cross over from there to make it work. But it's easier, it's certainly easier when it's odd, that's for sure, but you can work it out and it's in the instructions that come with it. So once you've got that, same thing. First thing you're going to do is line up the centre mark this way, and you're going to draw your largest cable with everything nested and the smallest one. And you're simply going to go along the marked centre line of your border, draw your largest cable and your smallest one, and go to the diagonal line that you've marked, because it's going to butt up onto there, and same with your small one. Go both directions. The crucial part is the marking. You are going to be stitching on this marked line. So this one is going to butt and turn. If at any time you wanted to make those just that little bit shorter so that it met perfectly in the corner, where you would adjust is in the centre of each curve. And you would mark your equal divisions across your quilt, and you would start here, you would move to the centre, and you would nudge this over so you knew where your repeat was going to be if you were making it a little bit shorter. And that's how you make it adjust. Once you've done that, you can turn the corner. So I actually measured for this one, I put a little dot where it should have finished, and then if you measure the same distance up on that line there, that's where that one would start, to be able to turn the corner equally. And that's how I would turn that corner for this one. Once you've done that, you can go back and you can remove the inner one, line it up again, and you can draw your next one. Just like that. Put that together and move on to the next one. But it is much easier to draw the just the largest and the smallest first until you've got everything lined up, to keep it all lined up to match the previous. You see how that's coming together? go on this side. And last of all, we go up to here. Then when I go to turn the corner, you're going to see that one, and that one is actually going to meet beautifully right there. So it actually will turn very nicely doing it this way. Hang on, I'll do it over this side so that we can see. And you can see how the corner is turned. Once you've done the top border, you would continue quilting and stabilising right through the middle of your quilt, get to the bottom border, and you would repeat this. Last of all, you would turn your quilt and you would measure again in between the 2 points, and if you need to change the width of your cable to fit in between, this is when you need to do it. And like I said earlier, the place, then you'll just create your equal divisions so that you're going to match up the center of each of your cables at the right points to make sure that it's going to fit in between nicely. If it's only a slight difference, then it's not going to be noticeable. If it's only going to be 1/8 of an inch difference in the width of, or the repeat of your pattern, and it's just like when you're using a stencil. So that's the basics on using the stencil. The first thing to do is decide on what width of cable that will be accommodated in your border, and then how many cables you are planning to use, because of course, as another demonstration, you don't need to go for that smaller one. If I was going to do a different size cable, that's my largest, that's now my smallest, so the large cable has to meet the smallest cable, and we get a totally different effect. And we're going to mark our center points, and then we will discover that our repeat on this particular design is now going to be 6 5/8 of an inch. So that is the repeat compared to what that one is. So that would be less cables and longer and skinnier for this particular design in the same width border. So it is important to make those decisions on how many cables you are planning to put on your quilt. See, so this one would actually work out to be sort of longer and skinnier. This is what it would look like. And it gives a totally different effect again. And that's how you can make things fit in any border. Thank you for listening. You can go to www.constantinequilts.com to find the perfect cable set to be able to create all sorts of perfect cables on your quilts. And just as an example, my sample quilt, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see, has got lots and lots of different cables. Here you go. So there's just a couple of triples with different backfills. The one on the outer border is using every single cable available, so that needs to go on quite a wide border. I do love this one over here, which is your feather intertwined with the cable. So once you've drawn it all up, you'll soon see how it works, and you're using your cables to give you guidelines for the width of your feather and your center spine of your feather, and that works exceptionally well. Let's move around to this side. You can see here is a different type of corner to make that turn, and I will just rotate this quilt so that you can see a little bit more on this side. I especially like, let's see if we can see that one there. I really do wish I'd done, there we go, that one there. So this one was actually 1, 2, 3, 4 cables, but can you see how I've gone in and I've actually done figure 8s in the center and in the middle cable, so it actually looks trapuntoed. And of course next to it is just a simple triple, which is quite elegant. And in the middle you can see just very simple cable, one line only. And here's how I've just used the templates to create a center motif. So that gives you some ideas on how to use the perfect cables. I'll just show you the corner that I did. So I dead ended a corner for the there you go. So now you can see how I dead ended the corner on the cable for that particular border. And sometimes that's the answer, to do that, create a whole totally different corner and not even turn the corner for a cable, which gave it a very nice finish. So thank you for listening, and once again go to www.constantinequilts.com to find the perfect cable template set.